Happy Tuesday! If you guys got to watch last week's video, that makes me very glad to hear because we talked about creepy followers. The nosy ones, the awkward ones, the obsessive ones, and the sleazy ones. And although it's really uncomfortable to have a follower online who creeps you the F out, it is so much worse when it's in person and face to face. We as artists really need to keep our guard up when it comes to who we choose to work with and do business with. Some people who claim they are professionals may not be the professional that you were hoping they would be. And a lot of the times they have ulterior motives. This topic is extremely important and something I really want to share with you all. I want to talk about knowing your worth. You do not need everyone and every single opportunity that is given to you. When I was younger and just starting out, I felt like I was at the mercy of anyone who would allow me the chance to showcase my music and my talents. I worked with anyone who wanted to work with me, and I thought I was lucky that anybody wanted to work with me, and that was because I didn't know my worth yet. And because of that, I ended up dealing with some really shitty people and some really shitty situations. I want to share a couple of those stories with you. And now it's funny because in the past, I never wanted to stir the pot or call somebody out on what they did because I didn't want to start anything. But honestly, screw that, because if you made me uncomfortable, there's a price to pay. But now I'm not going to be saying any specific names here, but all I know is that if these people watch these videos, they're going to know that I'm talking about them. And honestly, I could really care less. Hey! My very first time experiencing a professional's ulterior motive was maybe around the age 19. I got asked to model for a guy's clothing line and to do some commercial work for him. I drove 2 hours to Connecticut for him. I was on time, reliable, and showed up for the job. We did our photo shoot with some conversation in between shots, and it was all very tasteful stuff. I wasn't wearing anything inappropriate. It was literally just t-shirts and hats. But anyway, I wasn't blind to see that he liked me and he thought I was pretty, which no big deal in my opinion, but I was definitely picking up on his flirting for sure. After a long day and a long drive back home, I was excited to see these photos that we took together and to see the finished product. After a couple days, I ended up getting a message from him saying how fantastic the photos came out and how great everything was, and that he would be sending me some of the pictures so that I can use them on my resumes and portfolios. He ended up finding me on Facebook and then randomly messaging me, just simply saying, "I didn't know you had a boyfriend." I said yes, and although I found that really unprofessional, I sort of just let it go. Long story short, after that, I never heard from him again, or got to see or have any of those photos we took that day. I tried reaching out again and asking about the photos, and he never got back to me. Ever. And I hate to say it, but that scarred me, where for future projects I would be very, very careful, and I would purposely make sure that nobody knew my situation or if I was dating anybody until after I received what I was owed from them and I knew the project was finished. It's sad actually, but when I pick up on that vibe, I try my best to keep my mouth shut until I know the job is done and I got what I needed. And I just automatically flash back to that memory, and it really sucks. Another example that I want to share is something that happened a few years ago. I ended up doing a show in New Hampshire with a rapper friend of mine, and he was in the talks of going on tour with a new tour manager that he connected with, and that guy happened to be there that night that I was performing. After I performed, I ended up getting introduced to my friend's future potential tour manager, and he seemed really friendly and pretty cool. We started talking and he mentioned the tour to me and we exchanged business cards. It wasn't long after meeting where he called me to discuss the tour. I'm gonna jump ahead a bit, but eventually those phone calls became less about the tour and music and more about getting to know me and calling just to chat. I eventually was picking up on this and immediately knew that I didn't want to work with this guy. And now get this. He went as far as sending me Facebook messages at 2 in the morning and calling me at 2 in the morning, telling me that he's drunk and that my man is so lucky to have me. He sent me photos of himself and it just became completely inappropriate and unprofessional. Again, long story short, I eventually had to tell him how inappropriate he was and how unprofessional he was and that I had no desire whatsoever to work with him. Of course, he got all defensive and rude about it and saying how I'm making such a mistake and how he has all these connections, he's so important, blah, 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 I don't care. Meanwhile, where is this guy today? Nowhere. Best decision I ever made. Even if this guy did make something of himself one day and became this whatever, I could really care less. Best decision I ever made. I even ended up telling my friend, the rapper who was going to go on tour with him, what he said, and I got into detail with him about some of the things he said to me, and he called him a scumbag, and he didn't even work with him either. And the most twisted thing about all this is that even after all of that and me confronting him and telling him off, he still had the nerve to message me a few more times after that saying, hey gorgeous, hey beautiful, hey how are you? Unbelievable. But don't worry, I never replied and I have no intentions of ever talking to him again. But like the nerve, right? I sadly could go on and give some more examples, but the bottom line is no matter if somebody says they're a professional or even is a professional, it doesn't mean that they will act professional. And now if you are too desperate and you don't know your own worth, you could get yourself involved with some really wild people. It's okay to turn down opportunities and to say no. Knowing your worth comes in time and through experience, and it's something that you have to learn about yourself and really practice often. I have to say, it feels so good saying no when I know that something isn't for me. There's people who maybe would have went on a date with that first guy or went on tour with that sleazy manager. Ugh. But the thing is that they think it's their only chance, but it's not. That's something about growing up that I'm really grateful for. I'm so proud of myself that I know when to say no and that I'm not that little girl anymore who thought that she was so lucky to just have anybody to want to work with her. Now I actually feel the opposite. I feel like people are lucky to work with me. And I don't mean that in a conceited way. I mean that in a way that I know I'm smart, I'm talented, I'm reliable, and when you work with me, I give my all. And I put so much effort, I put so much heart and soul into everything that I do. And if I am working with you, I will put 100% into something and always hype you up. I truly care and I always try my very, very best. And if someone can't give me that in return, they are not worth it. Thank you guys so much for watching and for subscribing. I really hope that this conversation can help out anybody who is currently dealing with a similar situation. This is your sign to say no if you feel like something isn't right for you. Know yourself and know your worth. Have an awesome rest of the week, and I will see you next Tuesday.